All right, so welcome back. Today we cover six current affairs, sharp, relevant, and exam ready. Let's go. So the first topic is passive euthanasia, the right to die. Now, the Supreme Court has issued detailed guidelines for implementing passive euthanasia following its 2018 Common Cause judgment. The guidelines establish procedures for executing living wills where terminally ill patients can refuse life support. Medical boards must verify patient consent, terminal condition prognosis, and ensure no coercion before discontinuing treatment. Why this matters? This matters because the Supreme Court held that right to life under Article 21 includes the right to die with dignity. Forcing terminally ill patients to endure prolonged suffering through artificial life support violates human dignity. Now, a living will is advance directive where people specify treatment preferences if they become unable to communicate. The new guidelines require two witnesses, medical board approval, and judicial magistrate verification before execution. Now, doctors face ethical dilemma between preserving life and respecting patient wishes. The guidelines provide legal protection to doctors implementing living wills, removing fear of prosecution for abetting suicide under Section 309 IPC. Passive euthanasia, withdrawing life support, allowing natural death for terminal patients. Right to die, constitutional right to refuse life prolonging treatment with dignity. Living will, advanced directive specifying medical treatment preferences during incapacity. Article 21, fundamental right to life and personal property, including dignified death. And common cause judgment, 2018 Supreme Court case legalizing passive euthanasia in India. Medical ethics, professional standards balancing life preservation with patient autonomy. Then we have the next topic, which is FDI beneficial ownership, PN3 changes. And the government has amended Press Note 3 requiring disclosure of ultimate beneficial ownership for all foreign investments. Companies from countries sharing land borders with India, primarily targeting Chinese investments, must now reveal the actual individuals or entities controlling investment through shell company layers. Existing investments require retrospective disclosure within 90 days. Now, this is important because the Press Note 3 originally required government approval for investments from border sharing countries post 2020 Galwan clash. Chinese investors circumvented this by routing funds through Singapore, Mauritius, or Cayman Islands shell companies. Now, a Chinese company would invest in Indian startup through Singapore subsidiary, appearing as Singaporean investment. Beneficial ownership rules now require revealing Chinese parent company ownership. Now, this transparency allows government blocking strategically sensitive investments disguised as coming from friendly nations. The policy reflects prioritizing national security over foreign capital inflows. Chinese investments total around $4.5 billion in Indian startups before restrictions. This disclosure requirements will likely reduce these investments as Chinese firms avoid revealing ownership. Now, beneficial ownership is identification of actual individuals or entities controlling corporate investments. Press Note 3 is government policy restricting FDI from countries sharing land borders. FDI screening is government review of foreign investments for national security concerns. Chinese investment, capital flows from China into Indian companies and startups. Shell companies is corporate structures hiding true ownership through complex layering. And national security is protection of strategic interest overriding economic considerations. The next topic is creamy layer in OBC reservation. Now, a petition challenges the 8 lakh annual income ceiling for OBC creamy layer exclusion as inadequate and outdated. The petitioners argue this threshold, unchanged since 2017, fails to identify genuinely advantaged OBC members who should be excluded from reservation benefits. They demand linking the ceiling to inflation and expanding criteria beyond income to include education and occupation. Now, this is important because the Supreme Court's Indira Sahni judgment established the creamy layer principle, excluding socially and economically advanced OBC members from reservation benefits. The 8 lakh threshold was set in 2017 but has not adjusted for inflation. Now, reservation benefits within OBCs are captured by already advantaged families with higher income education, and social capital. Now, genuinely backward OBC subcaste receive minimal benefits, while dominant OBC groups monopolize reserved seats and jobs. Now, critics argue that reservation should target the most disadvantaged, not provide permanent benefits to entire caste, regardless of economic status. Supporters counter that caste discrimination persists regardless of income. Even wealthy OBCs face social stigma and exclusion. So the debate reflects tension between class-based and caste-based approaches to affirmative action. Creamy layer, economically advanced members excluded from OBC reservation benefits. OBC reservation, 27% quota in education and employment for other backward classes. Income ceiling, 8 lakh annual family income threshold for creamy layer exclusion. Indira Sani case, 1992 Supreme Court judgment establishing creamy layer principle. Social justice, correcting historical discrimination through affirmative action policies. And intra-group inequality, disparity within OBC category between dominant and marginalized subcaste. Next important news is small modular reactors. Now, the Department of Atomic Energy has approved developing indigenous small modular reactors with 300 megawatt capacity. Unlike conventional 1000 megawatt reactors requiring centralized locations, small modular reactors can be deployed near industrial clusters and cities. The first prototype is expected to be by 2030. However, India's uranium shortage persists, requiring continued imports from Australia, Canada, and Kazakhstan. Now, this matters because traditional nuclear plants are massive, centralized facilities requiring extensive safety zones and evacuation plans. SMRs are factory built, truck transportable units deployable in existing industrial areas. This kind of decentralization allows matching power generation to demand rather than transmitting electricity over long distances with 30% transmission losses. Now, India's domestic uranium production is about 1200 tons annually, but reactors require 2500 tons. The three stage nuclear program aims thorium utilization but remains uranium dependent for stage 1 pressurized heavy water reactors. Small modular reactors don't solve fuel shortage. They use the same uranium fuel as large reactors. India must continue importing uranium despite SMR deployment, maintaining energy import dependence. Then the safety versus scalability challenge. The SMR advocates claim factory construction ensures quality control versus on-site construction of large reactors. Now, passive safety systems using gravity and natural circulation don't need active pumps or operator intervention. However, deploying hundreds of small reactors creates regulatory challenges. Small modular reactors. Small modular reactors are factory-built nuclear reactors under 300 megawatt capacity for decentralized power. Nuclear energy, electricity generation through controlled nuclear fission reactions. Decentralized power, distributed generation near consumption centers, reducing transmission losses. Uranium import, purchasing nuclear fuel from foreign suppliers due to domestic shortage. SMR technology, modular nuclear reactor designs enabling mass production and easier deployment. Nuclear safety, radiation protection and accident prevention in nuclear facilities. Then the next topic is women in Indian agriculture. Now, a government report reveals women constitute about 42% of agriculture labor force, but only 13% hold land ownership titles. Now, women perform majority of farm work, including sowing, weeding, and harvesting, yet lack access to institutional credit, requiring land collateral. Government schemes like PM Kisan provide benefits to landowners, systematically excluding women cultivators working on family land entitled to male relatives. Now, this is important because women's agriculture work is undercounted in official statistics. Unpaid family labor on household farms is not recognized as employment. Despite Hindu Succession Act 2005 amendments granting daughter equal inheritance rights, cultural practices prevent women claiming land shares. Married women rarely receive parental land while husband's family resists transferring property to wives. Now, the PM Kisan crop insurance and debt relief schemes link benefits to land ownership records. Women cultivating family land receive nothing if title is in husband's or father's name. Agricultural extension services target male farmers for training on new techniques and technologies. Women farmers. Female agriculture workers comprising 42% of farm labor force, agriculture workforce. Total population engaged in farming, cultivation, and allied activities. Land ownership. Legal property rights to agricultural land enabling access to benefits. Gender equity. Equal recognition and support for women's contribution in agriculture. Farm economy. Agricultural production system and livelihood pattern in rural areas. Subsidy access. Ability to receive government financial support requiring land ownership proof. Maoist surrender. Over 250 Maoist cadres have surrendered in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha in March 2026 under government rehabilitation schemes. The surrenderies cite declining local support, improved government development projects in tribal areas, and exhaustion from prolonged conflict. The government projects left wing extremism affected districts declining from 96 in 2010 to 45 currently. Now, this matters because mass surrenders indicate weakening Maoist organization strength. Cadres cite government infrastructure, roads, schools, health centers, reaching previously isolated tribal areas, undermining Maoist narrative that abandons tribal, state abandons tribals. Now, effective police operations, eliminating senior leadership and restricting movement push cadres towards surrender. The government strategy combines security operations with development programs. Roads connect previously inaccessible tribal villages, reducing Maoist sanctuary areas. Schools and health centers demonstrate state presence and services. However, critics argue development is superficial. Mining and industrial projects displace tribals while land rights remain unresolved. Now, districts classified as left-wing extremism affected dropped from 96 to 45, concentrated in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha border areas. A reduced geographic spread indicates Maoist retreat to core strongholds. However, violence intensity in remaining areas remains high. Ambushes and ID attacks continue, killing security forces. So, Maoist surrender, armed cadres laying down weapons under government rehabilitation programs, Naxal Mukh Bharat, government policy aiming to eliminate left wing extremism by 2026, left wing extremism, armed Maoist insurgency in tribal areas challenging state authority, left wing extremism districts, geographic areas affected by Maoist violence requiring special operations, surrender policy, government schemes providing financial support and rehabilitation for former rebels, and internal security, countering domestic threats, including insurgency and terrorism. So that's it for today's session. Stay consistent, stay sharp. See you tomorrow. Thank you.